following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome into first-time edition of Belly Up Sports Baseball Super Show. 177 days ago, we said goodbye to the Major League Baseball season, and in just under 48 hours, we're going to say hello to a brand new baseball season, and we're here tonight to usher in the new season with a smorgasbord of Belly Up Sports media personalities. We're going to be breaking down all kinds of things for you tonight. We're going to break down each division, and we're going to talk to media personalities who cover these teams within these divisions, and we're going to talk about win totals. So if you're into those kinds of things, we're going to give you the perfect analysis of just how many teams, well, over and unders at least, with the win totals. We're going to predict who's going to win the division, who's going to win the World Series. We're going to have it all for you now so you can get it all set before the season begins, and then you can just focus in on Major League Baseball the rest of the way. We're going to get you ready for opening day, and we're going to do that in a very unique way here on the Belly Up Sports Baseball Super Show, presented by Mahler Brothers Golf and Righteous Felon Jerky. I'm your host, Vince Stover. I host the Sports Stove podcast and the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. And tonight I'm going to introduce you to some of my friends from Belly Up Sports. And like I said, we're going to talk all things baseball, get you ready for what is ahead. But in order to do that, we've got to have great partners. And tonight we are partnering with Righteous Felon Jerky. Righteous Felon Jerky is, I'm telling you, some of the best textured jerky you're going to find anywhere, and great tasting as well. I brought with me tonight my favorite personal flavor from Righteous Felon, the Baby Blues Barbecue. Look at that. That's a beautiful thing. And that's my favorite flavor. And I've had a couple of times now. I just finished off a brand new flavor, the Soul Survivor Korean barbecue flavor. I was going to show you that package, but my dog ate it after I emptied it of the jerky, so I can't show it to you tonight, but it's okay. It's great stuff. You can find it at righteousfelon.com. You can use a promo code of Belly Up, and you're going to get 15% off your purchase there at Righteous Felon. We'll tell you more about that ahead in the program. And then we're also partnering with Mahler Bros Golf, golf apparel, and other things as well. You go to MahlerBros.com. And again, at checkout, if you use the code BELLYUP, my goodness, you're going to get 15% off there too. So we're just throwing out 15%ers all day long today for you here on the Belly Up Sports Baseball Super Show. If you're watching this, I am hoping that you've already heard of BellyUpSports.com. But if you have not, you need to go there as soon as the show is done. BellyUpSports.com, you're going to find articles on every sport. You're going to find some satire there as well. You're going to find gambling things. You're going to find all kinds of stuff for you there on BellyUpSports.com. You can find my NFL mock draft. I know we're heading into baseball season, but it's there for you as well. And I've perfectly predicted the first round. So go to BellyUpSports.com and find that there. Then also BellyUpFantasySports.com has all the fantasy stuff you need. Fantasy football, basketball, hockey, and of course, fantasy baseball as well. So everything is there for you, all brought to you by Belly Up Sports and available for you there as well. We've already got people commenting, and we encourage you all show long. Go ahead and share your input on the opinions given throughout this show. Thank you, Morgan Mann, for tuning in tonight. And Atlanta Braves fan, hoping they're adding another World Series this year. You might need to add a shortstop in order for that to happen. But we'll talk about that coming up pretty soon here as we get to the NL East in a few minutes. But we're going to go ahead and get started today with our guests and our AL East breakdown. The AL East breakdown is presented by Mahler Bros Golf. We all want to look good on the golf course, but it comes at the expense of feeling good oftentimes. Mahler Bros Golf has polos that look good and feel good with their lightweight and stretchy material that hugs your body. You will feel cool while looking just as cool. Their polos are guaranteed to make you look better, but it's up to you to golf better. On a hot summer day on the golf course, there's no polo that you would rather wear than Mahler Bros Golf Signature Polos. Don't wait to try your new favorite golf apparel. Upgrade your golf attire with Mahler Bros. Get 15% off at MahlerBros.com with code BELLYUP. Again, that's 15% off with MahlerBros.com. The code BELLYUP. Turn heads on the golf course or wherever you wear Mahler Bros polos. Mahler Bros Golf. Look good, feel good, play good. Let's bring in our first guest of the evening as we get into the AL East. Then we're going to bring on a couple guys for you. First of all, from the 1420 Sports Podcast, it is the one and only Brent Radlinski. Let me get you in here. Sorry, Brent. There we go. And Hogdale from the Pesky Report. Now we've got guys that are kind of against each other here. Yankees, Red Sox. No love lost probably between the guys, but nonetheless, welcome guys. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having us again, Vince. Long time no see. We just did something the other night.
That's right. Brent was on the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball show Sunday night. Hogdale has not been invited to that show yet, but probably as soon as this evening's done. How you doing, Hogdale?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, glad to have you. Both of these guys are podcasters on the Belly Up Sports Network. And like I said, covering the Yankees and the Red Sox, respectively. And so I want to get started with just some general thoughts. I'm going to start with you, Hogdale, if I may. And that is with the Red Sox. There's a lot of things going around this season, a lot of maybe low expectations for the Red Sox this year. So how does the Red Sox fan base feel about the upcoming season?
Well, sadly, the Red Sox fan base is notorious of being filled with a bunch of raging pessimists. Can't say I'm one of them, but if I would be lying if I said that there wasn't a huge sense of apathy and low expectations this year. Even though I really do think there's a lot to be excited about. Like, it may be copium on my part. I really don't think so. I think the Sox have fielded a pretty decent baseball team this year, and I think they got a lot of things to be really excited about.
What about Chris Sale? He gets the second start this season. That was in some part due to health, and but he's slated to be there. So how's the you said you're an optimist, so are you optimistic that Sale's going to be around most of the season?
I really do hope so every day. It's tough because, like, when you have a guy in your team, like when there's a guy in your team that, like, if there's a hurricane nearby, like, that you need to hide him away for fear that the strong wind will break his bones into, like, it's a bit concerning. But I mean, he looks really good in spring training. He looked good last year in the stint that he was there. It's just a matter of health, and we're just wrapping him in bubble wrap and praying to God that everything turns out good.
Oh my goodness. Then let's see. Let's head over to Brent. Brent, Yankees. Now I know we talked about this the other night in the program, but not everybody watching was listening to that. Yankees come in. They got Volpe. That's gonna make the opening day roster. Going to start at shortstop. So there's some youth infused into this Yankee lineup as well. And would you consider yourself optimistic or pessimistic about the Yankees this year?
I am, as levelistic a word. I think that they're going to be about the same as last year a little bit. They're got a couple less wins. I don't think they're a World Series contender. They'll be a playoff team, but I don't think that they've done enough to be better than they were last year. The Astros are still the cream of the crop, in my opinion, in the American League. The problem that the Yankees have right now is that the health of their pitching staff. It's not good. You have Severino, he's out. He was supposed to have the big season this year, being a free agent. Rodon, he's out for a month. And last year, you remember the Yankees got off to a start that was unprecedented. People thought they were going to win 120 games, and they ended up only winning 99. But which is still a very good season. But you just got to think that they're going to take a little bit of a step back this year. Are they a playoff team? Yep, they're very good. Volpe, since we last spoke on Sunday there, you hear that he's going to be the next coming of Jeter, and I'm like, whoa, let's slow things down a little bit. He hasn't played a game yet, because that's some pretty big shoes to fill there. Even if Volpe can be like a Didi Gregorius kind of a player, because I thought Didi was a great replacement for Jeter. I think we should maybe set our expectations a little bit lower and not bet number two, and maybe a Didi kind of an expectation for a guy like Volpe. And he's only 21 years old. cold, and that's tough coming into New York. Yeah, you can have a great spring training, but when it all comes down to it, man, pinstripes can get heavy, and playing in New York City is a big lights, and it's a big time. We'll see what's going to happen on Thursday.
Now, I saw today on social media, and I didn't save it, so I don't know where it was. Alex Rodriguez said something about the Red Sox being the cream of the crop, or the what was it, Hogdale? You're laughing. You saw it.
Oh, yeah, that was funny. I think he just said like they were the standard, which if I was a Yankees fan, I'd be absolutely sick reading that quote. Genuinely, I feel for you guys that you had to endure reading that quote.
Brent,
he basically called us the class, which is like, hey, thanks, A-Rod. We appreciate you.
The thing about A-Rod is I learned to tune him out a couple of years back. Like I liked him. Like he tricked me. That forgive thing that they had going on back in 2013, 2014, the whole bit. And I'm sorry. I'm changed. And his publicist did a great job. There's no, like, the best publicist in the world is A-Rod's guy. Cause he fooled me. I was buying t-shirts the whole bit. And he definitely fooled me. That there's no getting around that. But when A-Rod talks, I tend to tune him out.
That's probably fair. In the AL East, let's talk about the division a little bit. Who do you think in the AL East, we'll start with Hogdale, had the best offseason of the teams in the AL East?
Yeah, I was gonna say like that could be a tough question, but like I think the Yankees realistically did have the best offseason. Like it's debatable, it could be them or the Jays, but like in terms of like just vibes overall, like y'all were able to get Aaron Judge locked up long term. You got the best pitcher on the market, Carlos Rodon. Even though he's hurt, it's not presumed he'll be out for a super long time. Like there's still some holes there, but like in terms of like after the offseason, when I'm looking at all the rosters, like do I like the Yankees roster better? Do I like the Jays? I prefer the Yankees significantly. Brent?
I like what the Jays did by adding Brissett from the Mets. I like getting Kiermaier. He's a heck of a player. And then we talked about the other night when the Jays, one of their biggest acquisitions is changing the field dimensions there at the Sky Dome. Might be one of the bigger things that happened there. And they're going to hit a lot of home runs this year. That team is stacked, and Kikuchi's looked like he's doing pretty good. Like how much weight do you put in spring training though? Like Kikuchi's better this year than he was last year, but that's not saying anything because spring training games, a lot of AA guys are hitting, so you don't know what you're going to get. But that Toronto team is stacked, and getting that winning pedigree with Brandon Belt from the San Francisco Giants, I think that is huge for a team that's, I mean, all teams seem to be a little bit younger nowadays compared to when the Yankees were winning World Series things. It's just kind of one of those things that everybody's young now, and guys that their shelf life isn't as long as it used to be. I think that Jays team is poised to do a lot of damage this year in the American League East, and it's going to be interesting to see how their starting pitching can hold up. Manoah's great. Like I said, Kiermaier, he's right there. It's going to, like the Jays, I know people around Canada right across from coast to coast here, they're looking forward to this Jays team.
Yeah, I like the Jays too. I think what they did this offseason was add balance to their offense. They were so right-handed heavy. The three guys that they bring in that they're planning on playing regularly. Kiermaier's a lefty, Belt's a lefty, and Varsho's a lefty. So they're going to add some balance. Of course, they got Biggio as well, who's a lefty that can play in several different positions. And I love
that Varshow's good. He's a really good player. Underrated because you didn't know where no one got to see him play, right? Because he played in Arizona. It's like, who is this guy? But he's a good player.
He is a good player. Yeah, and their pitching staff is solid, led by Manoah. They bring in Bassett. They've got a lot of things going there. And then kind of the joke of the division for years seemed like it was Baltimore, and all of a sudden this Baltimore team looks fun at the very least, and hopefully better. I mean, I say hopefully, you guys probably don't hope, but hopefully better for the average Major League Baseball fan. So Hogdale, when you look at Baltimore, are you starting to fear at all what they could be in the next year or two?
Within the next few years, absolutely. They have a distinct young core that is forming. Adley Rutschman, I would not be shocked if by the end of the year he's considered the best catcher in baseball. Like, I think right now we all keep Real Muto ahead of him just because of his past reputation. But in terms of pure talent, I don't think there's one that's better than Adley. Gunnar Henderson looks sick. Grayson Rodriguez, from all reports, he seems to be the real deal, even though apparently the Orioles, you can't call him up just yet, I mean, that stud Orioles rotation, spearheaded by the great Kyle Gibson, he just couldn't crack it. So, bummer for them. But, I mean, if I was an Orioles fan, I'd be disgusted after this offseason because your biggest acquisition was Adam Frazier. So I'd be pretty sick, like, if I was an Orioles fan. Because, like, why not add? Why not, reward the fans who, like, suffered through this, like, arduous rebuild? Like, this team, it is young. It is very fun, but it just doesn't have the pitching to go anywhere yet.
Brent?
Yeah, Baltimore's right there, and like you're saying, Hogdale, that the ownership didn't do themselves any favors at all in the offseason because they were right there with 83 wins, I think they had last year, and then to go into the offseason and do absolutely nothing. I don't want to say make your team worse, but there was no addition at all that's going to make them any better. They're probably going to end up taking a step back because the other teams in the division did a little bit, whereas the Baltimore Orioles just didn't, and their payroll is at $60 million, whatever it may be, and I don't understand how that can happen throughout baseball. I mean, that's another show for another day to talk about that kind of stuff because it doesn't make sense how a team was right there with 83 wins last year, a win here, win there. You never know, a hot streak in June can get you into a playoff game because it's not that long ago where they were in playoff games. We'll go back to 2016. Why Buck Martinez didn't change pitchers and put Zach Britton in. That's a few years back, but you just wonder how a once proud franchise fell that deep, and they have a good fan base, but if you're not going to spend money, that people aren't going to go. And to have 83 wins last year is tough, and to do what they did and to not add anything is odd to me. How they just didn't want to, and it's not like the fan base is asking to go out and sign Ohtani or anything. Just saying, add a pitcher here, add a pitcher there, and let's see what we can do, and just give it a shot. I think that's all Orioles fans are asking, and they just don't seem to do it.
Yeah, I actually love the addition of Cole Irvin in this rotation. I think getting him out of Oakland is going to be a really good thing for him. Now, is he an ace? No, but I think adding him to the rotation is great. But you do look at that pitching staff and you go, okay, someone's going to have to overachieve drastically in that pitching staff for something really good to happen this year. And then, yes, the Adam Frazier ad is not shaking anybody, I don't think, either. Who in this division is most likely to win the division, Hogdale?
The Yankees. I mean, to me, like the Yankees' floor this year is like 90 wins. I really like their team. I mean, the pitching right now is hurt; it's injured. But in terms of like the high-end talent, the Yankees have it. In terms of bullpen depth, the Yankees have it. I think they are most likely to win the division. Followed right next to behind them is probably the Blue Jays.
Brent?
I'm a little, like I said, I'm a little pessimistic with my Yankees this year going into the season, and I often wonder, like the money that they spend year in, year out, and why a team right inside their division like the Tampa Bay Rays, how other owners don't say, okay, so they spend $40 million. And we spend $300 million, and they're not winning World Series either. So why don't we do that? I don't understand why that hasn't gone across baseball. Why people don't hire these guys from Tampa Bay to say, hey, what they're doing here, they're saving money, and I don't understand that. I think Tampa Bay is going to be a bit of that dark horse once again in the division, but I think that the Toronto Blue Jays are the team to beat in the division this year because they're a little healthier going into the season. And like I've said 1,000 times, you can't win the World Series in April, but you can sure lose it. And the not having the health that the starting rotation of the Yankees right now, it hurts a lot because you just know that Stanton's going to get hurt in June and Judge will go through his thing. Every team goes through it. Like every team in baseball goes through it. But when you don't have two-fifths your starting rotation to start the season, that's tough to pick up on because you're going to get more injuries throughout the season. And every team goes through it, but to start the season off the way the Yankees are, I think it's going to be tough. And I think the Toronto Blue Jays are the team to beat in that division.
All right, let's run through these win totals real quick. I'm going to start from least to most given to you, and I want you guys just to give me over or under on these. Baltimore still coming in last in the win total projections here, 76.5. Hogdale over under 76.5 Baltimore.
That's tough. I do think the Orioles got worse. I just don't think they did enough, and I think everyone else in the division got better. I'll say under.
I was going to say, did they get 7 games worse is the question. Brent?
I have written down right here, you said 76.5. I got 77 wins written down right here. So that's what I got for 77.
There you go. Boston, they come in at 77.5. So a supposed game better than the Orioles this year. And that would be a pretty much right on the dot where they were last year at 78 wins. So Brent, we'll start with you. Boston, 77.5.
I got them at 81 wins this year. 81 wins. I think they're a better team. Sale's healthy. I think that they're a better team. Kenley Jensen's right there, so they have a decent bullpen. Like I like their closing situation better than what the Yankees got. We're still waiting for next Mariano to come back to the Bronx. It's been 10 years already. Like, what the heck's gone on? But I don't mind the Red Sox at all. Like, I think they're about 81, 500 kind of a team.
Hogdale.
Oh, I'm hammering the over.
Okay.
Hammering the people don't realize last year how bad the Red Sox were in close games because of how atrocious the bullpen was. The Red Sox last year blew 27 saves. That was third most in baseball. That's 27. The bullpen's completely revamped. Like, as you win 11 more of those that year, I believe last year you're a 90-win team, like based on the record last year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm hammering the over.
I like it. Tampa Bay, 88.5. This is a team that I never respect. It's a team I always come in going, no, they're going to go down this year. And then we get to the end of the year, and there they are. But 88.5 would be an improvement over last year. They were 86 wins last year. Hogdale over under 88.5 for Tampa.
God, I wish I could say under. I really wish I could. I hate the Rays, man. I hate the way they do business.
Everyone does for no reason. Yeah.
They just win. It's really, really frustrating. They pull dudes out of nowhere. Their cheating lab is genuinely impeccable, and I really wish that we could copy it. So I'll say over, begrudgingly.
Brent?
It's like you saw my notes somehow, Vince. I got 89 written down right there. I don't know how you did it and how we came up with these, but I got them at 89 wins. Playoff, probably a wild card team.
Wild card, itching for it at the very least. Toronto is at 92.5. That's where they were last year, 92 wins. Brent, you're pretty high on these Blue Jays. 92.
Much better baseball team this year. They have some great additions. Like I said, Kikuchi's not going to have a 2-win whatever he had from last year. I have them at 95 wins is what I got them at to win the division.
Hogdale.
God, this division's so brutal.
Uh-huh.
God, I'd say over. I think they'll probably win 93 or 94 games.
I think this division benefits from the new scheduling, where they don't
100%
quite as much, and they're one of the two conferences that benefits greatly from it. The Yankees come in at 95.5. They had 99 last year. Hogdale Yankees 95.5.
Yeah, I'd say over. Definitely over.
Brent?
Under at 93, I think they take a big step back because the way the season is going to start out with them. And like we said, I'm not a big Cole guy, and he's got some big starts coming up, and he's their ace. And I got them at 93 wins this year to get second in the division, and they'll be a playoff team, but I don't think they're going to do a whole bunch of damage. It's pessimistic, and I should be more optimistic. Opening day is a day and a half away now, but yeah, it's not Christmas morning for me this time around.
I gotta admit,
it's tough to be optimistic when like the shadow of the Astros just looms over the entire conference. Like, I just don't think there's anyone that's good enough to beat the Astros. Like, genuinely.
100%.
Yeah, it's fun having an optimistic Red Sox fan. I usually meet pessimistic Red Sox fans, and a pessimistic Yankee fan. Usually, all you hear is how great they are. So that's a fun one to have.
I'm much different. That chase for 28 and all that BS, I don't believe in any of that ever. Show me something this year. That's kind of how I am.
Sure.
Past.
What have you done for me lately?
100%.
Hogdale, tell us where we can find you and about the content that you're involved with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I do content for the Pesky Report. I believe the ad is just at Pesky Report. Yep, just at Pesky Report. I also do a Patriots podcast called One Patriot Podcast.
There you go. You can find them covering Boston stuff for sure. Brent, tell everybody about your show and content that you're involved with.
1420 Sports Bar Podcast, 4 Beer Sports, talking a whole lot more. Me and Dave get together a couple times a week. We just BS like you're sitting around your local sports bar, having a couple of pops here and there and everything else, and just basically just shooting the crap once in a while, a couple times a week, and that's where we found YouTube and everywhere else to get your podcasts.
Gentlemen, it was a great way to start off the show. Thanks for all your help, and good luck to the Yankees and the Red Sox this coming season.
Thanks a lot, Vince.
Thanks for having me on. You have a great one.
Yes, sir. All right, there you go. The gentleman there from the AL East, and we're going to get right into the NL East next. And our NL East breakdown is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. If you Want the purest jerky in the game? You got to go straight to the source. Righteous Felon has partnered with the best natural black Angus beef producers in the land, and they've locked up the supply and guarantee the best tasting, best textured, and freshest beef jerky on the market. Righteous Felon also offers free shipping on all orders, $50 or more. You can visit righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP. You get 15% off your purchase. I'm telling you, I love Righteous Felon jerky. You got to give it a try, give it a go. They've got a subscription service as well as just, one-time orders and things like that as well. You will enjoy it. All right, let's bring in our guests for the NL East. We've got two more guests for you. First, from Belly Up Sports in the Belly Up Baseball Department, it's our friend Dan D'Amico. And then also joining us from the Combat Deviants and the brand new Cardcore Hobby Talk podcast from Belly Up Sports, Steve Rachel. Hey there, man. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How you feeling tonight?
Oh, I'm feeling awesome.
We're right there. We're right at the edge of it.
I turned on spring training baseball this afternoon. I got home from work, turned on the Brewers and Rockies, and just soaked in the noise, soaked in the sound of it all. And I can't believe we're already there. But you guys cover an interesting division. You're both Phillies fans. We've got too many of those in Belly Up Sports, but nonetheless,
don't hate us. Don't hate us.
well, we got two Phillies fans, and I've had Dan. Dan's been on my show a million times on the Fantasy Baseball Show, and he's been on my other show as well. And so I hear a lot from him and things like that. But you're both Phillies fans, so let's talk about it. We just had a Red Sox and Yankees guy. The Red Sox guy was optimistic. The Yankees guy was pessimistic. I've not met a pessimistic Phillies fan yet this year. So, Steven, let's start with you, man. Optimistic, pessimistic about what the Phillies have done this year.
I mean, there's nothing the only thing to be upset about if you're a Phillies fan right now is the fact that you just lost your first baseman in Rhys Hoskins for the year, pretty much. I mean, but on the other side of that, you give a guy like Derek Hall a chance to kind of really see if what he can do given the opportunity. I mean, it also helps the Phillies in other ways because now it's going to be harder for Rhys to ask for that big contract again. So It helps the Phillies money wise. I'm like, you're trying to find the silver lining, and that's what I'm trying to do at this point in time. Yeah. But looking at what they did during the offseason, obviously, bringing Trey Turner in, you go and bring Soda, and you bring Kimball, and you shore up the back end of that bullpen. The only thing you have to do now is pray. The only difference from this year to last year is obviously 2 more wins and a healthy pitching rotation in the playoffs, and you're probably a World Series champion this year.
Fair enough. D'Amico, optimist or pessimist for the Phillies this year?
Well, it's hard to be pessimistic about a team that just went to the World Series in a season that no one was really expecting at this time last year. And then, like Steven said, they added the best shortstop on the market. They added a Hall of Fame closer. They added another hard-throwing lefty. But then you think about Harper's going to be out until June. Ranger Suarez is probably going to start the year in the IL. And obviously losing Hoskins for the year is a tough thing to swallow, a week away from opening day. But I think it's inarguable that the Phillies improved in the offseason, and for a team that was 2 wins away from winning a World Series, that's a very good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, you add Trey Turner, and you guys have both mentioned it, and to me, that's such a big deal, especially when you look at what San Diego's done all for the last year into this year, and all the pieces they're adding. Trey Turner to come over and pick Philly, even with Bryce Harper out for the time being, you're getting them back, and when you do, it just strengthens an already strong lineup. I love the Trey Turner addition, and I would assume, and I'm not a Phillies fan, but I would assume you guys are ecstatic about adding that piece.
Absolutely. I mean, you could not be happier, pulling the, arguably the best shortstop in baseball. You already have Kyle Schwarber on the team who, had, one of his best power numbers, in his career last year. You have some good things. Hopefully, Nicky Cal can find his bat again this year, and you don't not really stressing for runs and production. So, I mean, I think they're in a really good spot. You don't really lose too much during this past offseason. I mean, yeah, you lose, your prior shortstop. He goes down to Miami. That's fine.
Yeah.
You bring in Trey. You fill that up. Like I said, the only question is if you can keep that pitching rotation healthy and figure out what production you're gonna get out of 3, 4, and 5 is the only really question marks you really have. I mean, obviously everyone's talking about the Harper injury. He's gonna miss the first month and a half of the season. I think that only helps him because as he's gonna get hotter down the stretch, as he's proven that he's done throughout his career. I think instead of sneaking in the playoffs this year, that they kind of have their way with the division. I still think a lot of people are overestimating some of the stuff that the Mets have does. I still think the real test inside the division is going to be the Atlanta Braves. We don't know if we could see the Nationals, kind of make a surprise. I don't really see that, and we don't really see the Marlins doing anything. So really, when we're talking about the division, it's the three big boys. It's the Phillies, it's the Braves, and it's the Mets. I think the Mets are going to do the Met things that they always do. They'll put a lot of wins together, and then when it comes down the stretch, they're going to fall apart like they always do. Until they can prove me wrong, I will continue to run with that narrative. They have to prove me wrong first. I haven't seen it happen in the last few years.
The Mets will Met. The pitching rotation is a question mark, right? I mean, your bullpen looks solid. Nola and Wheeler, I like both of them a lot. Then you got Taijuan Walker, Bailey Falter, and Matt Strahm, I believe, are your 3, 4, and 5 guys.
Mr. Suarez, man, he was big during the playoffs, man.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps sleeping on Ranger Suarez. I don't get it.
He'll be back. Let's see. Is he gonna be there for his first start?
Yeah, I think he got banged up in the Classic a little bit. He got sent home a little early, so we got to see what's there. You still have young guys in that arm in your organization that you don't know what's going to do yet. I like Walker. We'll see. Like I said, the real question is the back end of that rotation. What's the production going to be like there? If you can get something above 500 from those guys, then you might be in some business.
Dan, are you comfortable with that pitching staff?
A lot can fall apart with the pitching staff, which is what scares me. Because with Wheeler and Nola both pitching deep into October, the hope is that they can last all year. And before Painter had his elbow injury, and before Ranger Suarez was dealing with his forearm injury, people were talking about a 6-man rotation to ease Painter into a big league workload. And I think the other half of it was to make sure Nola and Wheeler aren't overextending themselves. Nola's pitched almost, I think, the most innings in baseball over the last 5 years. And Zach Wheeler over the last 2 has been one of the most durable guys in the National League. And that might go away. And that's obviously a pessimistic view of what could happen. But
sure,
Nola and Wheeler have both been pitching a lot over the last few years. And with Suarez now hurt for probably might miss the first couple starts, Painter, you don't know what you're going to get from him now. The depth that you were happy with in the rotation has gone away, and now you're relying on Wheeler and Nola again. And the hope is they can keep carrying you.
Yeah. Now, the Mets, the Phillies, and the Marlins all had some pretty big additions this offseason. So which team in the NL East had the best offseason, if you can say it without being too biased?
I mean, you can't dismiss what the Mets have brought in. You can't. Obviously, there are obviously the Phillies kind of arch nemesis rival, being so close. Philly versus New York has kind of been, one of the silent rivalries that we don't really talk too much about in sports in general. But I mean, I would have to say they did have the bigger one. I mean, obviously, Miami stealing Ramirez from us is a nice pickup for them. I kind of felt that they overpaid for him. Congratulations to him. Like I said, good with what we did in exchange for that. But the Mets clearly did more during the offseason because they have more money to throw around. I mean, it's kind of rhetorical, but at the same time, dude, look, yeah, I've already mentioned what the Phillies have done. You bring in Turner, you shore up some of the that back end of that bullpen. Now you have Soto, Krimble, and Sir Anthony Dominguez for your last 3, 4, 5 innings. Depending on how your pitcher does, you have some depth there where you were kind of the question was. As our other guest over here was saying, we've been relying on Nola so much. We've been relying on Wheeler so much that they have been horsing the better part of the starts and the workload for the last handful of years here in Philadelphia. We'll see how it plays out, but I still think the overall we're okay in that end. But yeah, the Mets are probably the one who won free agency, but you don't win in anything at this time of year.
Dan, who had the
best
the
headlines, you win the
headlines.
Cycle. You ain't won nothing yet.
Yeah, Dan, who had the best offseason in the NL East.
I don't want to sound like a homer, but I still think it was the Phillies. And I think it might have been the Mets before the World Baseball Classic. And then Trey Turner hit 5 home runs in a week. And, I'm down on the Mets, and it's easy to do that as a Phillies fan and be down on the Mets. But Justin Verlander is 40 years old.
Yeah.
Max Scherzer missed 10 starts last year. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility they only give you 35 to 40 starts between them this year. So while bringing in a Hall of Fame pitcher is great, you bring in the best Japanese pitcher that the league has seen and that you're hoping you bring in the best Japanese pitcher the league's seen in a while, and you get Jose Quintana, who had a great year. But Jose Quintana had a lot of bad years between last year and his time on the White Sox.
Yeah.
And Kodai Senga has to prove himself in the major leagues before we give him, just anoint him a good number 3 starter. And I think they're aging. Starling Marte, Mark Canha are both going to be 34. So it's close. I really think it's close, but I think the Phillies just edge it out with Trey Turner and the bullpen.
Don't disagree there. Mets are going to run out of gas. It's going to be the Phillies and Phillies again.
Yeah, I agree with Jared there too, and you guys. To me, I'm surprised by how much respect the Mets got, and I understand the Verlander ad is a good thing for the Mets, but man, they're old guys pitching. Let's get to our win totals in the East. Sorry, my dogs are saying hello as my kids just got home.
How that goes.
Let's say hello to the NL East now. Win totals. Just give me a quick over under on these. Washington 60.5. Washington's bad. So over under 60.5. Dan?
Under. They've got some interesting pieces. Not really, but they've got some guys where you kind of want to check in, see how they're doing. Some interesting pitchers, some interesting position players that are still young, but they're pretty bad. I'll check in to see if Joey Meneses can keep up his 930 career OPS as a 30-year-old rookie, but I think they're picking first in a year from now.
I think that's safe. Steven, over under 60.5 for Washington.
Yeah, that's under. I'm same here. Like, I still think 60 might be a gift.
Sure.
I mean, I would not be surprised if they're well over 100 losses. Would not.
Oof. Miami 74.5. I think Miami's going to be better this year. Not necessarily contender better this year. They won 69 last year, so 74.5 is a 5-game bump for them. But you guys over under 74.5 Miami. Dan?
I'm over on Miami. I think in a different division, you're looking at the Marlins as a potential sleeper playoff team.
Yeah, put them
in a division with 3 teams that went to the playoffs last year. There's just no chance. They've got great pitching, and they added the AL batting champion. But unless Jazz Chisholm takes a huge step forward, plays 150 games, and unless you find the World Series Jorge Soler, I don't see real impact for the Marlins, but I do think they could be interesting and go over that total.
Yeah, if Jazz takes a big step forward, he'll probably break his foot. So don't do that, Jazz. Steven, over under 70.
I'm over on the Marlins, so I think they're around 80 wins, somewhere around that.
Philadelphia not getting a lot of respect, 88.5. To me, that was an.
Did you ever get respect during the national media?
So I'm guessing you guys are both going over 88.5.
I mean, I don't think it. I think we're going to be somewhere in the 90s
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, sure, every Phillies fan would like to see them pick up 100 wins, things of that nature. You know, it hasn't necessarily worked out too well for us in recent past. Like I said, I still feel this team is the divisional winner. You know, the national media can bury us all they want. They bury us every year. So.
Let's see here. Same win total. Let's see here. Yeah, New York Mets and Atlanta both at 95.5. So let's start with the Mets. I think they're under 95.5. You guys?
Without a doubt.
I agree. I think we're all on the same
like
page
89,
for all of these.
maybe not, maybe 90, but that's no. I still think it's way too high.
And then Atlanta, they're kind of that sneaky team that just stays there. It doesn't matter who's hurt, what's going on with their pitching staff, whatever. They're always there. But 95.5, over under 95.5 for Atlanta.
I think that might be their actual win total.
I think they win 98, 100 games. I think the Braves could be the best team in the National League this year.
All right, I was going to say 10 seconds. Who's the best team in the East? Dan, you think that Atlanta could be that? Steven?
I mean, on paper, I definitely agree with him there. Like, it's always in my opinion, we stole something from them last year.
Yep.
That should have been another run for them, et cetera, et cetera. We stole that from them this year. I think this is our year to prove that it wasn't a fluke. But yeah, I do believe, still being healthy, I still think they're the front runner in the National League. I mean, you can make some cases for some of them guys out west. Don't really see them being able to overpower anyone from between the Phillies and Atlanta. But we'll see. I still think it boils down to who comes out of the East is probably going to be the one that we see playing early November.
All right, very good. Dan, tell the people where they can find you at.
Find me on Twitter at DanDemico14. I'm just waiting for the next Philadelphia team to lose a championship at this point. I'm just waiting for the Sixers to go to the NBA Finals and make it like five straight championships where Philadelphia rooting interest is lost. So you can find me there, but it's not very optimistic there.
Yeah,
I definitely don't like being the bridesmaid as of right now. I mean,
Sure.
You really look at this past year in Philadelphia. We've so been the bridesmaid. Get there in the MLS championship, falling short.
Steven, tell the people where they can find you at. You've got a brand new
shirts there. Couple bad decisions and bad plays at the end of the Super Bowl kind of cost the Eagles one there. If the Sixers go and lose one, I think I might be on board.
This is the problem with bringing Philadelphia fans on. It's woe is me. We made it to the championship.
But it's not woe is me. We've literally been one of the more exciting cities to perform
Just look
in.
at this baseball hat back here and then keep crying. All right, Steve, tell them about your show. You got a brand new show getting ready to come out.
Yeah.
As well as another one that you're part of.
You guys kind of messed me up this week, but it's all right, guys. We'll still get things done the way we do things. Yeah, we're getting ready to launch a new program called Hardcore Hobby Talk. Linked up with this guy Mark LeMay from the Grading Authority, and we're going to be doing a little bit of everything. We're going to be talking card gradings. We're going to be talking about your signing events, things like that. We're going to be talking about all aspects of hobbying. That's going to be fun. And the general thing that everyone sees me with is combat deviance. I've been covering combat sports and MMA for the better part of 10 years now. I've interviewed everyone from Dana White to Chris Cyborg, to even some of the more recent bare knuckle boxing guys who've kind of making their stake of things. So having fun with that. Do that every Friday nights from 8 to 10 here on the Belly Up Sports Network. You can find me basically all across all your platforms. On Twitter, it's at Steve Sports Talk 1. You want to find me on Facebook, just type in Steven Rochelle. Same thing that goes when you go to Instagram, and make sure you guys are showing us love on all the platforms, whatever your your particular social media platform of poison is. Make sure you guys are checking us out, showing us love to the rest of the Belly Up guys as well.
All right, 2 Phillies guys. You guys can go cry about all your misfortune now. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. Appreciate it.
All right, fellas.
Thanks, Vince.
So, yeah. All right, there you go, Stephen and Dan. Appreciate them. Let's keep it rolling. Trying to keep it all on pace if we can. Next up is the AL Central, and our coverage of AL divisions is presented by Mahler Bros Golf. I went golfing on Thursday, and as I was trying to figure out what I was going to wear, I thought I need some new golf shirts because the ones I have are the same ones I used to have, which tells you they fit a little snugger than they used to. So Mahler Bros Golf is the place to go. I got on their website, checked it out, man. They've got loud shirts, or they've got your standard, if you're more like me, quiet golf shirts as well. They also provide sleek looking designs. They've got t-shirts, hats, tumblers, along with their polos as well. So go to mahlerbros.com. Use the code BELLYUP. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. And let's welcome in our guest for the AL Central is Lou Gamlin. He is the host of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Lou, how you doing, man?
Hey, Vince. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, man. How's everything going with you?
Oh, man, I tell you, so excited. Opening day is right around the corner. We're getting there. And you know what? You are a unique situation here, Lou, because you're a Tigers fan. Now, granted, I've not met a Tigers fan under 20 years old, but my wife grew up near Detroit, so she used to go to Tigers games and things like that as well. But you just don't meet too many Tigers fans in the last couple of years because they haven't been as great in the last couple of years. But do you feel like they're turning things around, or are you kind of waiting for that button to get pushed?
Well, Vince, I was thinking about this earlier today when I was saying, how am I going to start this off? And this Tiger team reminds me a little bit of the 2004 or 2005 Tigers, where they were rock bottom and they started getting some pieces. I don't see a Justin Verlander type like they had in 2006, but I think that they got a long ways to go. Last year, they had some expectations of maybe being a 500 team. Started out pretty good, and then that old injury bug hit. We don't have Casey Mize. I don't know if he's going to be back this year. He was the prize that we were supposed to have a couple years ago. Watched him at West Michigan in the minors. He was great. I'm thinking, the future's bright. Tariq Skubal, I don't know when he's going to be back. They're saying he's starting to throw now, so maybe June. But our pitching staff isn't going to scare anybody. I don't think it's going to scare too many AAA teams. Matt Manning is good, but he's young. Matthew Boyd is going to be one of our guys. We all know what happened with Eduardo Rodriguez last year, a big signing from the Braves. He had personal issues. I don't know if it was marital, something. He had to leave the country. He's our opening day starter. Things are thin right now in Detroit. It's funny. I look at your hat. I will always Milwaukee's always going to have a place in my heart because that's where I went to see my first game as a kid back in County Stadium in the 70s.
Yeah.
I've got family that lives in Wisconsin. I was raised up in the UP, so I've gone to my fair share of games at County Stadium, both the Brewers and the Packers. Tells you how long ago. But yeah, getting back to the Tigers, it's going to be rough. I love baseball. I'll be watching a lot of it this summer, and I just hope they're competitive. I have very low expectations. I really do.
That's a good place to be, though, sometimes, because then it only gets more positive as you go along. The Javi Baez thing it just didn't work, right? Is it going to ever work, or is that old news?
Well, you saw a lot of him when he was with the Cubs. And what did he have? One good year in Chicago.
Yeah.
And the thing that just eats away at me was Carlos Correa wanted to come to Detroit last year, wanted to play with AJ Hinch, and Detroit could have had them both. I mean, you look at what he signed with the Twins originally, and he had the out after 1 year. They could have had him and Baez. That could have been the middle of their infield. I am not a Javi Baez guy at all. I think he's kind of a ham and egger. He strikes out a lot. he'll hit the occasional spree of home runs, and he's a good glove. I get but we need a guy that can get some hits, some home runs. Detroit doesn't have it. They they got to rely on guys like Scope who hopefully Riley Green can come through. Spencer Torkelson, the hot shot pick they had a few years ago. Excited about him, but he kind of slumped. But Detroit had no choice, Vince, last year. They had to bring some of these guys up because we didn't have anything. I love Cabrera. He's done yeoman's work for Detroit, but his time has passed. He's got no power left. You see it. So I don't know. It's
Cabrera.
Javi Baez stinks. He's overpaid.
Yeah, Cabrera to me kind of has that Yadier Molina feel from last year.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you can't tell him to leave because he is who he is, but at some point you hope that he realizes, this has got to be the end. It's got to be with him.
I think he has come to the realization this will be his last year. They gave him the key to the city in Lakeland last week, which is really cool. For all he's done for Detroit, it's mostly been ups. He's had a couple of downs, which, he had earlier in his career when he was younger. I would love for him to get hot, say, around the All-Star break. Let's say, he finds a little bit of power. And I would love for a team to trade for him at the deadline so he could get one more chance to win a ring. I don't care if it's even the Dodgers, God forbid, or, let's say your Brewers are needing a bat.
Yeah.
And I would love to see somebody pick them up just to give them a chance to go out on top because, I just don't see it in Detroit. I really don't. So I'd love to see him have that.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one, I think, in Detroit this year. Spencer Torkelson, you mentioned, he didn't do what they were hoping he would do, but he's young. He's got plenty of time to recover from that, to come back and do better. And you add Riley Green as well. And for my fantasy baseball team, I'm hoping Riley Green goes off.
There you go.
But those are two young guys that are fun, and those are guys that bring people to the park. They get to see the young guys come through. I was just thinking the Brewers, they got all these young outfielders. Everybody thought they were going to make the opening day roster, and then they didn't. They're going to go back to, and they could, but they're going to go to AAA. They'll be back up at some point in the season. Having the young guys, the prospects, these guys that have all this potential, it does bring people to the ballpark. And Detroit, from what I understand, from what I've been told from my wife many times over, is a great environment to go to a baseball game and the good things to watch with these young guys.
Oh, she's right. I love going to Comerica Park. My wife and I try to get down there at least once a year. We live in Lansing or Grand Ledge, so it's about an hour and a half, from the stadium. And it is a great environment. The sight lines are awesome. They've revitalized downtown Detroit, so all the stadiums are pretty much right there, and there's great places to go eat. And another guy to watch, is Austin Meadows. He had a bad year last year. He had some personal issues and he got hurt. I think he got sick. They got him from Tampa and he started out great, but then, the injury bug and the illness and all that. He's going to be one I think is going to help step up for him. But, we're 2 to 3 years away and, and AJ Hinch, to me, I think he's got something to prove.
Sure.
And I know he had a great run in Houston, albeit it was tarnished with the cheating scandal. But I'm glad they got him, and I still hold out hope. But I think after Dombrowski left, Al Avila came in and just burnt the place to the ground basically, and we paid for it. And hopefully things can turn around soon because it's a shame. We got rabid fans. I was watching your Philly guys, and I'll tell you what, they can be all woe is me as they want. I would gladly trade losing in the Super Bowl or losing in the World Series to finish in 66 and 96 every year for the past 5 years.
I hear that. Who do you think in the division and the whole AL Central, who do you think had the best offseason? Because it was kind of a quiet offseason for the division as a whole.
Well, I think right off the top, you got to say the Twins getting Correa. I love it. I love that. I kind of watched it. I wasn't 100% watching it all the time. I know he had the injury. I want to say scare, but they shied away in San Francisco. All that was really weird. And then New York went to swoop in to get him, and then they backed off. And then Minnesota had different doctors or whatever. But I think right there, that's big. And Kansas City really didn't do anything. You're right. It's been a quiet off season in the American League Central. And I got to say, Correa sticking with the Twins, that's huge, because I like their lineup this year in the Central. And so I'd have to go with the Twins.
I'm really big on the White Sox this year. I think they're getting overlooked by a lot of people. Part of it is just guys, injury issues they've had several times over. They didn't do a whole lot to add. They added Benintendi, which I think is
I like that
for them.
Yeah.
But I just think those are guys that if they actually do what they're potentially could do, they're going to be a really good team. They got the manager thing situated now, and that was a big problem for them last year.
Right.
And then they got a decent rotation too. Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn, and then they added Clevenger, who's had some off the field issues as well. But if he comes out and pitches like he can, even at 32, he can give them something as well. So I kind of like the White Sox, I think, as a team that improved quietly over the offseason. But you're right, Minnesota being able to keep Correa in the house is a big deal for them. Who's most likely to win the division? I mean, Cleveland's the front runner, and they won it last year as well. So is that where you'd lean?
You know what? I'm going with the Twins.
Okay.
I look at this lineup, with Correa and Buxton and Kepler and Polanco. Their pitching staff. Obviously, you could say this about any team, Vince. If they stay healthy, they're going to be good. I mean, it's a long season. You're going to have injuries. I like the talent. I love the bats. Yeah, and I think they got quality pitching. We'll talk about the over/under in a little bit, I'm sure, but I could see Minnesota with playing in this division, winning anywhere from 88 to 90 games, and I think that's going to be enough to win this division. Chicago, I think they're right around 84, 85, and Cleveland, they got great pitching, and of course they've got, they got Jose Ramirez, who, he had a great year last year. I don't know if they got the sticks that the Twins have, and I just think the Twins are, to me, a little more balanced. So that's where I'm leaning.
I like it. Now, Byron Buxton, he's not played 100 games except for once in his career, 2017.
Fair.
Last year he played 92, so he almost got to 100 games. Byron Buxton, and then again, now a lot of my baseball analysis comes from the fantasy aspect of things. So I see Byron Buxton, I go, I can't draft that guy because he's not going to play. And so it automatically puts me very negative on him as a whole.
Fair enough.
But if he does stay healthy, and I think, when we got some of the rule changes and things like that could benefit some of these guys as well. And you're right, their pitching staff, they got a good pitching staff. Too. I think there's a lot of good things that come from Minnesota. The addition of Pablo Lopez is I think, a great
I like that too. Great point.
And if Sonny Gray can get close to form, they got some things that can happen there and can be good as well. Let's get to the win totals here in the AL Central. Let me see if I can find them. So Kansas City is projected last in the division, 68.5 wins. I know a lot of people are big on Kansas City because they got some young talent, but their pitching staff is horrible. Where do you sit at 68.5 with Kansas City?
I'm going under. I'm saying 65. I got them at 65 and 97.
Okay.
I'm with you. Their pitching staff, if there's one that may be a little bit worse than Detroit's, I think it might be theirs. And they're gonna have. They're from Missouri, right? The Show Me State. They're gonna have to show me because I don't see it.
Right above them is Detroit, 69.5 wins. They had 66 last year. How do you feel about that one?
I think it's spot on. I'm not putting any money on that one. I think I could see Detroit go for anywhere from 58 to 72. I really, if they can get Skubal back in the rotation, and if Manning can stay healthy, and there's potential there, that ugly word, but I could see him right at 70. So I say that's right on. I would push 70, 69. Yeah.
Minnesota, not getting any respect. They're 82.5. So it sounds like you'd be over pretty hard on that one.
I am. Yeah, I've already put a few shackles on that one on the over. Yeah, that to me, I was watching you. That's right up there with the Red Sox. Those are two that I've put the over money on. I'm bullish with Minnesota.
I like it. As my friend says, a little pizza money.
There you go. I like it.
White Sox, White Sox are at 84.5. Again, this team that's kind of floating. To me, that's their range is right there mid 80s. How do you feel about that one?
You know, I'm saying 85, 84 wins. I'd call it a push. Yeah, that's pretty close. And you know, you bring up some valid points earlier in our conversation. I got to say that's about right. 84. Yeah, I could see that.
And they'd be sniffing wild card at that.
Yeah.
3-2. I think they'd be happy if they're in that mid to upper 80s as well. And then that brings us to Cleveland. They're at 87.5. They were at 92 wins last year.
You know, again, that's close. I would tend to say maybe a little under. Okay. I think maybe an 85 win team, 84, 85 right there. I just think, you know, it's every year. Minnesota, again, going back to them for just a second, there's one of those teams that you're just waiting for them to get 96 wins. And I think that would take some away from Cleveland. But we all know pitching wins, but I just don't see it. I'm going to say 84 and 78, so a little bit under.
So last year on the Fantasy Baseball show, we talked about this division. It seemed like almost the entire season because it was always up for grabs. Eventually Cleveland pulled away, but for a while there, I mean, Minnesota was on top, and then they dropped down, and Chicago was there, and then Cleveland took the lead and kind of held on to it. But it's going to be, I think, a wide open division for those top three teams this year as well.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's from a fan's perspective, and we're, you know, in the Central Division, you know, we're not going to get much love on either coast because, you know, the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Phillies, and justifiably so. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's going to be a fun division to watch, just like your division over in the National League.
Definitely. Tell the people about the Captain Lou Extravaganza.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're on Wednesday nights at 7:00 Eastern time live on the Captain Lou Sports Network on Twitter, powered up by Belly Up Sports. We're wrapping up what our kind of a side podcast called the ACHA Power Play, which is the American Collegiate Hockey Association. We had our national tournament last week, and it was an absolute success. So we're going to do that episode tomorrow night, and then we're going to wrap up the season with that next week. But then we get back to talking baseball, the hockey, everything you want to talk about at Cornucopia. And it's usually about from 7 to about 8:30. We get guests every week, and it's a lot of fun. And I invite you to check it out. Again, that's on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, and we're powered up by Belly Up Sports.
I love it. I actually played club hockey in southern Wisconsin in college, in Watertown, Wisconsin. So, but I was not great. I'm from Tennessee. I was not great, but I played club hockey. So I just tell people I played hockey in Wisconsin. Everyone thinks it's great.
Vince, I got to tell you, we were in Boston for the national tournament last weekend, and there was 78 teams there, and all 5 divisions. And in Division I men's, they've already had, I think, 5 that have signed minor league contracts. So they're getting bigger, and it's awesome.
I love it. Lou, I appreciate your time. Good luck to you as a Tigers fan this season. And we'll try to chat with you throughout the season as well.
Right on, Vince. Love to have you on my show sometime too. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. All right, there you go. Lou Gamlin from the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Find them there on the Belly Up Sports Network. All right, we're going to take a shift in our talk, take a quick, brief break away from the divisions, and we're going to talk what's going on with the injuries in the Major League Baseball world. And so we bring on our injury professional from the Injured List podcast. He's the host, Brian Scott. Let me get the right screen here. There it is. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Whew, technical difficulties. I apologize.
That's okay.
Do you hear that? Is that the 7th inning stretch?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Is that what we're doing here, the 7th inning?
Oh, I think it's a good segue into the injury segment. What do you think?
You always got to stretch. I was told that it's a very important
Yes,
part of
very
any
important.
sports
In fact,
thing.
the players we have on this list probably didn't do enough of that, and that's why they're on there.
That's
So
why they're here.
that's
Brian
why they're
is top notch when it comes to injuries and breaking down what's going on with years of experience as a trainer and working in different aspects with that. We love having him to talk about these things. He's got his own podcast, the Injury List podcast, but you can also catch him on a ton of Belly Up stuff as he jumps on and talks with a lot of fantasy shows as well, talking the injuries. So let's talk about some of these injuries that we've kind of talked about off the air as well. I want to start with the pitchers, though. I threw you a couple of names. Rodon is the guy. Carlos Rodon. He's Yankees' big acquisition the offseason, gets injured, and now he's going to miss some time.
Yes.
So not only how much time is he going to miss, but when he comes back, how effective is he going to be?
Well, so they're not giving a timetable as to when he's going to return, and this is certainly understandable given the nature of his injury, which is a forearm flexor tendon injury. You hear about this, immediate concern comes in that could it be an ulnar collateral ligament, which is notoriously injured in baseball pitchers and something that they don't mess around with. So they shut him down for a little while. It sounds like he did a little bit of bullpen sessions just the other day, did about 30 pitches in a bullpen session and felt pretty good. He's not going to be traveling back to New York, however, for the start of the season. He'll remain in spring training while he'll be doing some rehab. So I think it's still going to be a few more weeks out. I think he's going to need to at least get a simulated inning, possibly some minor league time at the spring training facility before we see him back up in New York pitching in the cold weather and stressing that elbow in a start. So my guess is anywhere between 2 to 4 more weeks, but that really hinges on how quickly he's able to get through his rehab and get back on the mound in live pitching mode.
Do you think at the end of the day, it's going to be worth the signing?
Yeah, I mean, assuming he doesn't have any setbacks and there's nothing major going on in that elbow that concerns them about a ligament injury, I think it'll pan out for the remainder of the year. You see injuries like this pop up in spring training, depending on the guy's offseason schedule. If they haven't done a lot of throwing, sometimes it's just some muscle or tendon soreness, nothing structural wrong. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But I think, if everything bodes well and he's healthy, it should be a great signing for the Yankees.
Another guy's Joe Musgrove, San Diego. San Diego's done so much to build this team to be a team that can push for a World Series. They've got other guys, Tatis, who's out with suspension and things like that also. But once they're at full strength, they should be incredibly tough. What do you see about Musgrove's injury and the expectations for him?
Yeah, so in my podcast, I used to do a segment called the Throckmorton sign injury of the week. And what that was is, if you don't know what the Throckmorton sign is, you got to look it up. It's a satirical medical term, but basically it's a guy who gets injured not on the field of play, but rather under some unusual circumstance. And Musgrove would have qualified to be an injury of the week in that segment because he dropped a kettlebell on his toe, thus causing a fracture of his great toe. Luckily for him, it was on his lead foot, not his back foot. Those tend to heal pretty well and pretty quickly without any major issues. Sounds like he avoided anything serious, like an open toe wound or anything like that. They're predicting that he's going to be back, I think, April 14th, which is right around 4 weeks from the injury. And I don't see this causing any major long-term issues, assuming that he's feeling good and it hasn't thrown off his mechanics. Because as we all know, or as we should know, baseball pitching starts from the ground up, which is why pitchers focus a lot on leg training and cardiovascular conditioning. You need to be able to have a stable base to which you need to push off and pitch off of. So as long as that toe is not nagging him and he's able to get back on the mound, it's his lead foot, I don't think it'll pose any major issues, but it's going to be a few more weeks before we see him.
Yeah. Now, when I look at injuries, my biggest concern is for fantasy baseball. I'm always trying to figure out, okay, if I got a guy that's going to be out for a while, I got to have the heads up on him so I can get him at the right time. Tyler Glasnow is that way with Tampa. What do you see about him? And again, the kind of the impact of his injury versus when he can get back on the field.
So unfortunately for him, he's been dealing with a lot of stuff over the last few years. He had Tommy John back in 2021, I believe, then had an ankle issue, had some an arthroscopic procedure and some loose bodies removed from the ankle joint last year. So he's been dealing with a myriad of stuff that's kept him off the mound, unfortunately. Apparently, he's been throwing on a flat ground. I think about 75 feet was his last session. And this is all because of an oblique strain. Has nothing to do with his lower extremity, has nothing to do with his elbow. So dealing with a core injury, which again, in the baseball mechanic world is very important. So you don't want to treat that too aggressively. It sounds like he's going to be missing between 6 to 8 weeks was the original report. And they did get an MRI, which confirmed the diagnosis. So they're saying that likely return would be sometime early May. And I think that's probably on point.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect him back too much sooner. When it comes to oblique injuries, those are very easily aggravated. And with the pitcher, because of the mechanics, you got to be really careful, make sure that they're as close to 100%. And he hasn't even thrown off a mound yet. So that's going to be the real true test, is once he gets back on the mound and starts throwing at full velocity.
I drafted and stashed him in one league already, so I'm hoping it's early May versus June. Let's go to the other side of the field. Two second basemen. Altuve, of course, with the injury during the World Baseball Classic. Jorge Polanco, another guy that's dealing with injury as well at second base. So, what can you say about these two guys?
Well, Altuve is an unfortunate circumstance there. You know, I think the World Baseball Classic this year was probably one of the best we've seen in a long time. Some great storylines coming out of it. Unfortunately, he was one of the casualties, suffering a thumb fracture after getting hit by a pitch while playing for his home country, Venezuela. Unfortunately, even more so, he needed surgery to fix it, and that's going to keep him out at least 6 weeks is my prediction. It depends what they had to do to treat the fracture surgically. So he's probably going to be able to come back and swing a bat before he's probably able to throw, is my prediction, because this is his throwing hand. And the big issue is going to be grasping. You can bat with a protective covering. You can make some cushions and pads that you can hold on the bat to be able to grip the barrel better. But throwing the ball, you really can't put anything between your hand and the ball to provide cushion. So I think we might see him get some time at bat before he has them in the field. But it's going to be at least, in my prediction, at least 6 weeks, possibly longer, depending on what they had to do surgically.
What about Polanco?
So Polanco's dealing with like about a tendonitis in his knee that forced him out the end of the last month of last season, unfortunately. So he's been dealing with this for quite a while. I'm not sure what types of treatments he had, but at some point, if all these treatments fail, surgery could be a real option to go in and clean out whatever inflamed tendon is irritating his knee. My guess is that it's one of the knee tendons in the front of the knee, your patellar tendon. But usually these are chronic and not acute, and can usually be managed with rehab and treatments and activity modification, probably looking at something he's doing and training-wise and maybe altering what he's doing. But he had some setbacks in the Grapefruit League. It's not looking good, but they're saying that he's probably going to suit up these last couple of games in the spring training and hopefully be ready by opening day.
We're running past on time because our Phillies guys talk too much, but we had Franco and Hoskins. Franco's a short-term thing. Hoskins a long-term thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass on them, but let's talk about Yordan Alvarez. He's an important piece of the Astros, but dealing with, it seems like this nagging kind of situation.
Yeah, some weird kind of injury, some hand soreness they're describing. No specific injury per se. And apparently when this bothered him last year, it was in both hands, not just one. So not sure what's really going on with him. It's kind of a vague situation. They haven't really provided much details or any diagnostic information for me to go off of. It sounds like it could just be nothing serious, but maybe more mental and physical. I don't know at this point. It's hard to say.
Very, very well could be. Seiya Suzuki's an interesting one. He's with the Cubs. He's kind of a question mark when you look into the season as far as how's he going to do in the major leagues and all those kinds of things, but he's dealing with injury now too. So what do you know about Suzuki?
Yeah, he's coming back from an oblique strain as well, similar to what Glasgow's dealing with. He's making probably better progress. He's actually been taking some batting practice and swinging the bat pretty well, according to all reports. Sounds like he's going to be ready for opening day.
Very good. Brian, tell the folks where they can find you. Like I said, you're kind of everywhere these days, but where can people find you at?
Yeah, I mean, with all these sports going on, NHL, NBA, MLB starting next week, and football draft coming up, I'm kind of been bouncing around all over the Belly Up Network, doing some stuff for everybody. I'll be doing the NFL draft thing with Dan Mater over at NB's Fantasy Football in April for the draft. So you want to tune in for that. It's going to be a huge show, similar to our baseball show here tonight. And then, I'll be putting updates on social media when injury information hits the scenes. The podcast has been kind of put on the back burner a little bit just because the NFL is on quiet. And most of the stuff I get asked to do nowadays is just to kind of pop in and do some injury updates. But you can always check on the website for old episodes that cover a lot of different injuries. You can find me at theinjuredlist.com and my website, and you can contact me there if you have any questions. And find me on the Belly Up Network, is where you'll see me pop up sporadically and sometimes unannounced.
Yeah, and you got you on your Injured List podcast. You got some great interviews on there as well, past interviews people can go back and listen to also. And hopefully we'll be talking to you throughout the baseball season on the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. Also.
Oh yeah, we'll have plenty of baseball stuff. I'm gonna be lining up an interview with a former major league or minor league baseball pitcher who never quite got into the big show, but dealing with injury stuff, and we're gonna get him on the show and talk to him about some stuff soon here. So stay tuned for that.
Very good. Brian Scott from the Injured List podcast and Belly Up Sports. Brian, thanks so much, man. We always appreciate your expertise.
My pleasure. Let's play some ball, huh?
I love the music. Thanks, Brian.
All right.
That's Brian Scott again from the Belly Up Sports Network, and he is there. It's time to get to my favorite MLB division, the NL Central. Our National League Division breakdowns is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. As I told you before, I've got my favorite flavor right here, Baby Blues Barbecue from RighteousFelon.com. I ordered it. I used the code BELLYUP. I got 15% off my purchase, and you can do the same thing. RighteousFelon.com, promo code BELLYUP, 15% off your jerky purchase. And let's bring in our guest here. He is from the BellyUpFantasySports.com, and he is, I got to click the right thing, Chase Thornton. Chase, man, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing tonight, Vince?
I am doing great, and I'm excited. I can take the rest of the time and just talk Milwaukee with you. Both Brewers fans. So we, as far as I know, the only two in the network. We had a Tigers fan on earlier. There's only 2 or 3 of those in the network. So
yeah, Cap Blue's good for that. Yeah, he's a Detroit guy through and through. So, and
our boy Mike, co-founder of Belly Up's a Detroit fan too.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't let him on the show. So. I'm kidding, of course. Let's talk some Brewers. I mentioned this, I think it was with Lou, that the Brewers have these young outfielders that look like they were going to make the opening day roster, and Frelick and Weimer, and neither one of them did. I understand it. It makes sense to some degree, but it kind of felt like we were building up this excitement for these young guys, and then, never mind.
Yeah, a lot of, like you said, a lot of people thought Weimer would make it. A lot of people thought Sal Frelick would make it. Frelick played in the World Baseball Classic there. And Garrett Mitchell obviously had his cup of coffee last year at the end of the season, actually played pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was looking like a youth movement in the Milwaukee outfield. And actually their top 4 prospects, are all outfielders, if you include Jackson Churio too. So he's topping on a AA. He might make AAA this year, but he won't be called up this year. But it really did look like it was going to be a youth movement, and then they kind of pulled the rug out from under everybody. I've got to think that the biggest reason for that, I mean, with them expecting that Tyrone Taylor was going to come into the season, and with them hoping he would be healthy to start the year, I think they were hoping that they could just set their infield up with Anderson at third and try Urias at second. But then when they brought Terang up to play second, the infield shuffling kind of necessitated Brian Anderson, one of their big acquisitions this offseason, play in the outfield. And I think they really like to construct their roster with versatile guys.
Sure.
Craig Counsell, and this was a Stearns thing before, obviously he left, or didn't leave, but he's not the general manager anymore. But Arnold kind of followed right in the footsteps, and they've put a lot of Swiss Army knife types on this team that can play around the infield, can play some outfield, can even be options at designated hitter if you want to, depending on what side of the plate you want to stack your lineup. But I think that shuffling in the infield was what kind of unfortunately forced out for sure Weimer and Frelick, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see them up here at some point this season. at
Yeah,
all.
I'm contacting all. I grew up in Middle Tennessee, so I'm contacting all my friends that I say you got to go to some Nashville minor league
Right.
games because they are loaded, and there's
Yeah.
some guys that you're going to be seeing in the majors very, very soon. So go catch as many games in Nashville as you can. First base has been a struggle for the Brewers for several years now. Tellez had his best season last year. They bring in Luke Voigt, who beats out Keston Hiura, which to me is no surprise. But and I like Voigt. I think it's a good addition. Again, he's a right-handed guy, where you got Tellez his bat's lefty, so you get that mixture there. That those two guys going, they don't give you much anywhere else. They should hit for power and play first base. That's pretty much all they do. So except for all that versatility, except for that spot, but that's okay. You can, if you got that much versatility, you can afford to have two massive first basemen over there.
Right.
Are you happy with the Luke Voigt signing and with him and Tellez kind of taking care of it?
It's kind of funny. I think Tellez, by this point in this offseason, it's cliche to say, but I think Tellez will benefit from the shift going away. Obviously, he's not, he never was a runner anyway. So if he doesn't have to try and like sprint and beat a throw from shallow right field, good for him. But ironically, Luke Voigt, how many times, say 2-3 years ago, as we've been searching for a first baseman ever since pretty much Prince Fielder, how many times in the last couple of years did Voigt's name come up as somebody, the Brewers might target him. Might target him. Now they finally got him. I do. I like it. And he's opposite side of the plate from Rowdy. He has a little bit. He's not a strong strict platoon candidate. He's got soft splits against the opposite arm, but I do like it. I like it just because we're 2 years, 2.5 almost now, but from his monster year in the shortened year, he could still hit the ball, from Arizona to Milwaukee. and like you said, we'll see how often he actually has to play. We'll see how often he DHs. We'll see what they try to do with Winker. If they actually try to make Winker use a glove at some point. But I do. I like what their first base situation is now. I like it better this year than I've liked it for a long time. The idea of using Keston Hiura at first base when he's only a little bit taller than I am. I'm 5'5". He's not a ton bigger than I am.
No.
And he's not a great fielder.
Right.
The idea of that, plus his bat has just gone absolutely backwards since that phenomenal rookie year that he had. However, he cleared waivers today. I don't know if you saw that. I hope you saw that.
Yeah.
He cleared waivers today, so it looks like they'll be able to hang on to him, and maybe he can get things right. He's one of those guys. Here's one of those guys that every time he goes down to the minor leagues, he rakes down there.
Yep.
They bring him up, and he absolutely kills the ball for about a week and a half.
Yeah.
And then collapses again, and then you start the cycle over again.
Yeah.
But I like first base with Tellez and Voigt. I like it much better than I like it with any combination that involves Hiura right now.
Sure. Now, the biggest question is Yelich, because we talked about it at the fantasy draft the other night. Yelich, Bellinger, and Stanton were guys that 3 years ago everybody was dying to have.
Right.
And and I still like Christian Yelich. I still think he provides value, just not for the contract that he has.
Therein lies the rub. Yeah.
Yeah. So are we going to see him make any kind of comeback towards that, or are we going to be trading him away in the next year?
Honestly, I don't think they'll be trading him away because I don't know that they'll find anybody who will want to take that unless he returns to that form that he had 2-3 years ago. And if he returns to that form of 2-3 years ago, they're not going to want to trade him.
Yeah.
In all likelihood, right? Yeah. This is a team that doesn't they've adopted this new philosophy in the last decade or so of not trying to tear it all down, of trying to kind of rebuild on the fly and always stay competitive, which why couldn't we have done that for 30 years prior? But if they think they've got a shot at some things, they don't want to offload all the time. And Christian Yelich is going to be tough to offload with that contract unless he returns to that previous form. Now he's hit pretty well this preseason. He's looking, like you said, he looks like he can add some value, and he has added value. Statistically, he's added value. He's been above replacement level even in these terrible years that he's had. Problem is he is so stratospheric for that 2-year stretch there right after they signed him or right after they traded for him, that, I mean, anything short of that, people are going to see as a complete and total disappointment.
Speaking of disappointments, how about the Brewers front office and Corbin Burns? They totally shaft Burns this year. They've been in arbitration, but ultimately it means Burns is almost done as a Brewer. A great staff, I think. I love Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta. Peralta can stay healthy. Lauer's fine. Don't love Wade Miley in that rotation, but I like what we have in the bullpen that can pick him up and everything as well. So ultimately, I look at this pitching staff and I think I kind of like it overall. And Burns, if Burns and Woodruff can be what Burns and Woodruff can be, and the Brewers should be right there at the top of the NL Central and have opportunity in the postseason.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why those two wouldn't either. I mean, they've been able to stay. I won't even say it, but they've been able to pitch every time they've been called on. We'll say for the most part, and I mean, they both just have such good stuff. They're both such fierce competitors. I mean, if you remember back to Woodruff in that playoff series against the Dodgers, and I mean, just they're both such fierce competitors. I don't see any problems with them. I think Peralta is kind of a linchpin of the whole thing, because if Peralta can be what Peralta can be,
yeah.
Now you're talking about a top three that nobody wants to see in a series, postseason series. And then, you back that up with Lauer, who had a good season last year and is, like you said, is fine. And he's our number 4 guy, probably nominally. I don't know. I'd like to see them maybe split him and Miley up in the rotation, but that means pushing Peralta back to the 4th spot.
Right.
The Brewers typically tend to try and use 6 guys anyway. They don't stick to that straight every 5-day rotation that some teams do, but their options are a little shorter, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, they got
with the injuries to Ashby and Hauser, and yeah. So good thing they made that big offseason pickup for Wade Miley.
That's right. Yeah, stellar move. Who made the best offseason? Who had the best offseason for the NL Central? To me, it's the Cubs. I like what they did.
Well, they definitely they made the biggest splash, brought in the best player with Dansby Swanson.
Yeah.
I mean, they made the biggest addition. I don't think the Brewers did all that bad, even though they didn't bring in anybody that everybody's like, shooting the lights out for. You knew they're not going to be in on the big name shortstops,
right?
Which doesn't bode well for Adames in a year or two here. But I mean, they brought in guys that they can plug in and use, and some guys that if they hit just right, and I mean hit as in like the bet hits, they'll be fine. But Chicago, I mean, especially bringing in Swanson like that. They brought in Tyon, and so they've got a good, solid guy to plug into that rotation now. We'll see what Suzuki does. We'll see if Bellinger can bounce back. I agree with you. I think they had a stellar offseason as well.
They're going to have 6 or 7 new guys in their lineup this year. Yeah. Swanson's the big one. Mancini comes over. Bellinger, if he can find, just like Yelich, if he can find anything like he used to do, would be a help. Hosmer, he has a role. And Tucker Barnhart at catcher. I actually like Tucker Barnhart. He's a downgrade from what they had, but I like that he can be there. I don't like their pitching, and I think that's what's going to ultimately kill them, which I'm perfectly fine with Chicago not doing well.
I won't be crying for that. My biggest and hey, one of our offseason losses in Milwaukee was another one of their under the radar but good pickups in Boxberger. Boxberger has been a foundational piece of that Milwaukee bullpen for a couple of years now, and them bringing him in, I think, will help them out, especially if Fulmer proves he can't handle the closer's role. So.
Yeah, let's look at some win totals in the Central. Cincinnati, I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year, although they've got some pitching prospects or young pitchers that could boost them a little bit, but they're at 64.5. You're going to go over or under 64.5?
I'll go under on that. I think they're a century loss team again.
They were at 62. Yeah, 62 and 100 last year. I think they're going to go over, but not by a whole lot. 64.5 is probably in that right range. Pittsburgh, they're getting some respect, and I don't get it. 67.5. I mean, I know that they got some good young guys, but they won 62 games last year. They're saying they're going to be 5 games better this year. I don't see it. What about you?
I'd call it somewhere in between there. I think, like you said, I mean, there's a reason that people in Vegas are setting these lines, and
Right.
you and I are talking about them, right? They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
67.5. Yeah, I'd probably go a little bit under that, but I think they will be better than Cincinnati. I just think they're tough to look at.
Yeah.
That's a 100-loss team. I think, yeah, they've got some young, exciting, kind of exciting or promising pitching prospects.
Yeah.
But then Pittsburgh has the opposite thing going on. All of their exciting youth is on the field.
Yeah.
O'Neill Cruz and obviously Ke'Bryan Hayes that they've seen. I mean, they've got some fun youth there if they can put it together. I mean, this isn't a team that's going to challenge for a wild card, even in the best circumstance this year, but they should be firmly in fourth between Chicago and Cincinnati, I would think. So I'd go a little under 67.
I don't think Cincinnati be as bad as Washington, but they're going to be bad. We know that much.
Yeah, they're going to try their hardest for it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chicago's at 77.5. They won 74 games last year. I think they're a fair amount better than they were last year. I still don't think they're contenders, but I think they're definitely better than they were last year.
I think they're a little over that. I think they hover right around 500. I have them pegged for about 80. About 80 wins, I think, is just about right. And that's again, we've kind of been talking about it, but it's a team that with the additions that they made, they should be a better lineup.
Yeah.
If their pitching holds up at all, even, it wouldn't be a shock to see them clear 500. And if you can clear 500, you're in the mix in September, which is all anybody can ask for.
Milwaukee's at 85.5. That's down. They were at 86 last year. I think they're better. They had that fall off last year after the Hader trade, which was
brutal
decision. I don't think trading him was the wrong thing. I think not telling the players they were going to trade him was the wrong thing to do. But anyway,
it on everybody as they walk into the ballpark. By the way, guys.
Yeah, 85.5 for Milwaukee. You go over or under?
I will go over on that one. I will go over on that one. I see them right on St. Louis's heels for the division.
I agree. St. Louis is at 89.5. They had 93 wins last year. Goldschmidt and Arenado coming off the World Baseball Classic. They upgrade at catcher this year over Yadier Molina from last year at the very least. To Contreras, I think that was a great move on their part. Their pitching staff is the same as it was last year. So not bad, not great at the same time, in my opinion. But 89.5, you go over or under?
I'll actually go slightly over because I think 90 wins takes the division, and I think they're a 90-win-ish team. I'm with you. I don't trust their pitching.
Yeah.
And, Goldschmidt and Arenado are just so damn good. But, if anybody falters in that lineup, then, then they won't be quite the juggernaut that I think they believe they are. I agree with Contreras at catcher. They're Contreras at catcher. Because as beloved as Yadier Molina was, he was not the same player offensively that he hadn't been that same player for a while.
Yeah. Pujols showed up, but Molina did not.
And as much as I hate to, respect anything about the Cardinals, what a great story that was.
It was.
For him to come on like that and have going out on top. Yeah. He looked like Albert Pujols again, and he hadn't looked like Albert Pujols since he caught that first plane out of St. Louis.
Yep. I agree.
Good for him. Good for him and good for them.
Chase, tell the folks where they can catch you at. I know you were you'll tell them, but Belly Up Fantasy Dynasty Football show, and you got a lot of articles going out too.
Yep. You can find me over there, like you said, at bellyupfantasysports.com. I'll be writing some Dynasty fantasy football and some articles previewing what teams need here running up to the draft, maybe some player profiles and that. So check me out over there. Check out all the other stuff that's going on over there at bellyupfantasysports.com as we head up to opening day here in less than 48 hours. There's a lot of stuff going on. Ian Lemersall and Kevin and the whole gang. Other than that, you can find me on Twitter, as it says there, at STTChaseFFB. I'll give my thoughts on signings as they happen. And during the draft, I will be actually on the Belly Up Sports draft coverage show. So you can find me there too, giving my opinions on that. That's what I got going on every Sunday. Like you said, 10 o'clock a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find me on the Belly Up Fantasy Live show. Generally, Kevin Wilson's there with me as well, and occasionally other guests as well. There's big changes coming for that in the future too, so stay tuned.
Awesome. And Chase has joined the Belly Up Fantasy Baseball League this year. So again, we'll talk to him throughout the season on the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show as well. But Chase, hey, it's fun talking to a fellow Brewers fan. We'll catch you throughout the year, but thanks a lot for coming on, and let's go Brewers, right?
Yeah, definitely go Brewers. Good to see you.
We'll see you. All right, there you go. Chase Thornton again from BellyUpFantasySports.com. We're going to keep it moving. We got 2 West divisions to go. We'll start with the AL West, and our AL division breakdown is presented by MahlerBros.com. Are your polos getting outdated and dingy? Well, it's time to get some new ones that'll make you stand out on the course. You need the Mahler Bros Golf Signature Polos. Their polos are comfortable, slim fit, that will make you look and feel good when you're golfing with the guys. Don't wait to try out your new favorite golf apparel. Upgrade your golf attire with Mahler Bros. Get 15% off at MahlerBros.com with the code BELLYUP. Again, it's 15% off at MahlerBros.com with the code BELLYUP. Turn heads on the course or wherever you wear Mahler Bros polos. Mahler Bros Golf. Look good, feel good, play good. Our next guest, he's going to help us with both the AL and the NL West, is my friend and cohort in the fantasy baseball world, Kevin Wilson. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
We're doing good, and as we're on the show, and we're less than 48 hours from the start of baseball, and we'll be hearing those most famous words, play ball, here really, really soon. So you got to get jazzed up about that. So I am really, really looking forward, because that should start off relative, central like we are. Well, you're east, but I'm central over here. So by about lunchtime, here, baseball will be on. So I am very excited about that.
I'll be out at work. I'll have my headphones in. I think
I'll be at work too, but that's going to have to, take a little sidetrack every once in a while.
Yeah, I think the Brewers' first pitch is around 2:30, something like that. So I'll be listening to it as I'm walking around. I kill bugs for a living, so I'll walk around, kill bugs, and listen to the Brewers. Kevin, again, we talk a lot of baseball every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. And I've got you for the next the final 2 divisions, the AL West and the NL West. And I want to start now. You're a fan of the Dodgers, so we'll get to them in a little bit. We're talking AL West first. So you live in Texas. Right. So I want you to come on for this one to talk about the Rangers, because they made some splashes the last 2 seasons, off seasons. And the question is it going to pay off? Jacob deGrom, of course, the big one this year. What's the feel like down there in Texas about what the Rangers had did this offseason?
Well, the Dallas Morning News, which is a local paper here, just did a profile of the season, and they've got the Rangers finishing second in the AL West this year. I am not going to get on board with that just yet. I think they're going to be – how could they not be improved? Because they've had 6 straight losing seasons. And so anything less than a winning record will be a massive disappointment. They've got a manager now who has 3 World Series rings that he could just call a player in. Maybe he's being a knucklehead and doesn't want to listen. Do you have 3 World Series rings? I don't think so. So you sit down, shut up, kind of thing. And so I don't think Bruce Bochy is that kind of guy. He's when I was in San Diego years ago, he was the manager of the Padres, and he took them to the World Series. Of course, they didn't beat the Yankees. No one was beating them back in those days. But he is a guy who commands a clubhouse, and so they have to feel pretty good that they got a guy, because they've brought in some guys that was their first go around as a manager, and none of that has gone well and last 6 years. But if you got Bruce Bochy sitting there, and he knows what he's doing, he knows how to handle pitchers, he knows how to handle the bullpen. So I think that is a massive upgrade for them. And he's going to give Dusty Baker, who now has a World Series ring of his own, a run for the best manager in the division. And that's really saying something, because Dusty Baker is an impressive manager in his own right.
Definitely. So now they got 3 new starting pitchers in deGrom, Eovaldi, and Haney. They also bring in Oderose, who is dealing with some arm fatigue already. So
Right.
I'm not sure what the role is going to be for him, if he's going to fit into the rotation or not. At this point, I would think he would be out of the bullpen because you got Martin Perez and John Gray, who I'm a very anti-John Gray guy, but that's a whole nother story.
Yes.
But all those pitchers are over 30, and DeGrom, he's been injured a lot. So that's the big question mark, right? How many innings is DeGrom going to have this year?
That's been the question over the last couple of years when it comes to DeGrom. And, he had the early side tightness, and everybody was like, but he has thrown some very good pitches, and he's looked good. And unfortunately for our Philadelphia brethren in this belly up league that we're in, they pay, the Philadelphia Phillies are the Rangers opening day weekend opponent.
Yeah.
So if there's a guy that knows how to pitch against the Phillies, that's got to be Jacob DeGrom. So we're going to find out right out of the gate just how good, if he's at the top of his game, there's not a pitcher that's better than Jacob DeGrom. And it doesn't matter which name you want to throw at me, whether it's Verlander or whomever else. And so we're going to see pretty much right out of the gate. And their pitching, as you mentioned, they're all over 30, but they know how to pitch. All of those guys. And so the pitching will have to be better, and it just has to be better. There's no question about that. And they'll have to get something out of Josh Jung over there at third base.
Yep.
Because there were 5 teams in all of baseball that were worse at third base than the Rangers, and they have to get something out of left field because there were no team that were worse than the left fielders that they trotted out there a year ago. So
I want to come back to DeGrom real quick. He pitched more innings in 2019 than he has since.
Right.
2020, he was at 68 innings, 2021, 92, 2022, 64. So he hasn't even hit 100 innings in the last 3 years. That's got to be scary, especially for the amount of money that they gave him.
And they gave him a few nickels to come on down to Texas.
Yeah.
And so you have to, because Chris Young is the general manager, and he is a pitcher himself back in the day. And matter of fact, he was one of the pitchers on the Padres when Bochy was the manager down there. So between the two of them, you think that they would know pitching when they saw it. So I'm willing to give them a little bit of leeway at this point. And they signed DeGrom, and so we'll see.
Yeah. Now, they do have, you talked about it, they got a decent offensive lineup for the most part. Simeon, who started slow, but he finished great.
He started so slow that you could have a rowboat going faster than he was until June. Then he was fine after that.
He was fine.
And I think that I got him on my fantasy team, so I'm certainly hoping he busts out of the gate. So
him and Seager they got the middle of the infield covered. Nathaniel Lowe had a great year,
covered,
and he should do fine. Garcia in right field, he strikes out, but he's got some good things to him. Josh Young is the young guy at third base.
You talk about strikeouts. That's his bugaboo.
Yeah,
because he was striking out.
But there's expectations for him this year. We'll see if he can meet them.
Absolutely, there is.
Carver as a backup too, not bad. Robbie Grossman's fine. Brad Miller, okay, and then you get the center fields. Bubba Thompson. I'm not sure if that's going to do anything good for him.
No, you got the Grossman, twins running around out there. So that does not inspire a whole lot of confidence. But as I said, they've got to be better than what they had out there in left field last year.
We're not going to talk about the A's at all because there's nothing to talk about.
There's zero reason to discuss it.
But the Angels coming off an incredible World Baseball Classic with Ohtani and with Trout. We've talked about them before, but they've never achieved what they should. Seattle finally showed up last year, and then Houston's the star in town right now. So when you look at those teams, Angels, are the Angels going to make the playoffs this year?
Well, they better. If that's all you can say about them. They had better be in contention in July. We're not talking about, towards the end of the season. They better be in contention in July. And people are not buying into that because we're going to get into the over-unders here in a minute. But they're not seeing the Angels.
They could be out of it in the first month if they're not careful.
Could be. And if that's happening, then you have to wonder, does Ohtani even on the team when August 1st rolls around? And maybe he's on my Dodgers that we're going to talk about later. So we'll have to see about that.
Who had a better offseason, the Rangers or the Mariners?
You gotta give it to the Rangers at this point with the pitching.
Yeah.
But the Mariners,
you don't like Oscar Hernandez, do you?
No, I do not. As far as he's a fine major league player, but I thought he would be a bust as a fantasy outfielder. And I still believe that, because how do you go from Toronto to Seattle? You're not gonna match what you did a year ago. And if you're the Mariners, you got to hope that Julio keeps on rolling and doesn't experience any. I don't think he will, any of that sophomore slump stuff. And
Julio.
Pitching, you got to like their pitching too, because they got Castillo out there, and
Gilbert, Bobby Ray.
He escaped from Cincinnati, so that's got to be, he's got to feel like he escaped the dungeon. Over there, and they got George, and Robbie Ray. So they're pitching. I think if the because you had Brian Scott on a minute ago, and he was talking about Altuve, that's got to be concerning about, for the Astros. He's the spark plug. He's at the top of the lineup. And as he mentioned, nobody seems to know what's going on with Alvarez. The season starts 2 days from now, and nobody knows, is he going to hit or not?
Right. I do want to give a shout out to Colton Wong. He got traded to Seattle this offseason, and I think that's a great pickup for Seattle. A lot of people just kind of swept over that, but you can't. I'm telling you that he is so consistent. He's going to provide good things. I like what Seattle has. Will be better than last year. That's the question mark. But Houston is the team to beat in that division. They're
the defending champions. Yeah, nobody's beaten them in that division. 5-6 years now, and I suspect that's going to continue. But they are not going to win like they have in the past, when they won 105, 106, whatever it is
last season.
Yeah, that's not happening this year.
All right, let's talk about that. Let's go win totals. Oakland 59.5. Oakland is to me the closest thing to Washington, maybe worse than Washington. 59.5 over under for Oakland.
Well, 59.5 is not a very high bar to set, and so I think they're going to win 60.
Okay.
60 and 102. So over by a half a game.
Okay. Let's see here. The Angels are next at 80.5. They won 73 last year. That's a 7-game improvement from last season. Did they hit that mark?
I think they're over again, not by much. I think they go 82 and 80, and that's not going to get it done in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes. So he's not going to be on the Angels next year.
It doesn't appear so.
You can set that in stone right now.
Texas, they have an even bigger jump. They're at 82.5. They were at 68 wins last year. Again, they had such a bad start. They add DeGrom. So do you think they make that big a jump to 82.5? I
think they go slightly over that.
Okay.
I think that a lot of guys are thinking they're going to go even higher than that, but I say they win 83, 84 games.
All righty. Seattle, 88.5. They won 90 last year.
They go over that. I think 90 is a good target for them. If you win 90, the chances of you being in the playoffs is high. And so I think they make the playoffs for the second straight year after not being in the playoffs since I was, who knows where I was the last 2001. I don't know where I was. So
Houston won 106 last year. You said they
not
didn't
happening.
win that many, and Vegas agrees with you. They got them at 96.5, which is still a good win total.
It is.
But 10 down from last year. Do you think they go over 96?
I go under
Okay.
slightly. I'm going to go at 95
Okay.
win for. I would go 100 if they had Altuve, and so, but they don't. And that's a big loss. People just can't gloss over that because you just cannot replace an Altuve and all he brings and the exuberance and the energy and everything else that he brings. Plus he bat, at the top of the lineup.
Yeah.
And so, no. So if they win 95 and he gets back, by June,
yeah,
they're in good shape. 95 is a good goal for them.
All right. Let's see here. We're gonna go right into the NL West because you're my guest for the NL West too.
All right.
NL
I'm gonna go and switch into
breakdown.
my Dodger jersey, but I guess I'll have to hold off on that. So.
All right. The NL division breakdown is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Again, you go to righteousfelon.com, use that promo code BELLYUP, you get 15% off. I highly suggest the Baby Blue Barbecue and the Soul Survivor. They're a brand new Korean barbecue flavor.
You got to give them props for the name. Am I right?
The name and the design. I mean, they've got a different design on every one with a different bull. Of course, they got some turkey jerky too. So they got turkey.
That's just bringing on the power.
They do
that's
a great
power
job.
Right there.
Great
or
packaging.
The younger crowd would say that's fire. I guess
that's fire. 100, no cap, something like that. Okay. Now I'm getting out of hand. Okay. Let's I've been talking for 2 hours. Let's get into the NL West.
I understand.
NL West is an interesting one. The Dodgers have kind of ruled the roost, but San Diego's made some moves this year. Let's start with the Dodgers since that's your team. They subtracted this year. First time they've done that in a while.
Yep. They had no real additions at all. And so I think that the Dodgers are in real peril of not winning a division this year.
Yeah.
And because they've won the division 8 out of the last 9 years, and the year they didn't win it, the Giants won 107.
Yeah.
And so, but they're still the Dodgers. They're still a good team. They're even borderline great team. The problem is that the Padres, and they showed, as I always said, the Padres were kind of like the redheaded stepchild, the little brother compared to the Dodgers. But they flipped the script when they beat them.
Sure.
In the playoffs a year ago. So the spotlight's on them. They've got the players. They're not all young players. I think that's key. And so I think the Padres are got to be the favorite to win the division, unfortunately for me.
The Dodgers' big signing in the offseason, JD Martinez. Well, okay. David.
Let's not get carried away.
No. Miguel Rojas. Okay. I mean,
that's not get carried.
It's just not a great signing either. And then they brought in Noah Syndergaard to pitch to go with Urias, Dustin May, Clayton Kershaw, and then at some point in time, but it's going to be a while before Walker Buehler gets back. So yeah, it was definitely a different kind of offseason this year for this team and the Dodgers. And I think you're right. I think that what San Diego has done is I think San Diego should be the clear front favorite, although Vegas doesn't agree with me on that.
But Vegas, they're the ones that get out the microscopes and that's where the money's coming in and everything else. But I'm not seeing this. I think the Padres have to be. They got pitching, they've got hitting, and they've got a guy who's just waiting in the wings in 20 games into the season, and we'll see what he has to say and what he can do once he gets on the field. But that's like adding an all-star before we usually do that at all-star break.
Yep.
Or towards, end of July. They get him at the end of April.
They bring in Xander Bogaerts. They got Juan Soto last year, Manny Machado, Jake Cronenworth, Hassan Kim, Trent Grisham. Matt Carpenter comes over as well. He's going to be the DH at 37. They'll just use him sparingly. David Dahl comes over, which most people don't look at and go, yeah,
let's not get carried away on that.
Not horrible. And they got another old guy in Nelson Cruz that he's limited to what he can even do. But then you look at the rotation: Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, Nick Martinez, Michael Wacha, and Seth Lugo. None of those guys you look at and go clear ace, in my opinion. But you also look at those guys and go, well, they're not bad though.
No, and Yu Darvish is right there, maybe one half of a step below ace. He's done it. He's capable of doing it. And just as soon as you pick him up in your fantasy league, then he steps off the cliff.
Yeah.
And because that's happened to me, and I hope that's not the case this year. So,
and Joe Musgrove will come back. He's injured. We talked about him with Scott Bryan earlier in the program. You add Musgrove to that rotation though, and it looks that much better. And then you got Josh Hader, who's
your relief pitcher over there from Milwaukee. He's going to be settled in. Hader, and so you got to like him. I didn't draft him this year, which means he'll probably have 47 saves.
Great, yeah. What about Arizona? Arizona's a team. They're young, they're exciting, and
they are exciting.
They may be sneaky good this year.
They might be. I think it's still just a year away before we can get into really being a competitor, especially when you've got the Padres and the Dodgers on top. That's a tough row to hoe, you know what I'm saying? And but you have to like what they've got going on, especially on offense.
Yeah.
They bring in Moreno, and if you read my article, you know I have him as a pickup. And they've got Carroll, they've got McCarthy, they've got Walker at first. And so they've got all kinds of young hitters. And if they put the bat to the ball, they can do some things.
Yeah, I mean, Ketel Marte's still not even 30 yet.
Ketel Marte, right? He seems like he's been around for 10 years or whatever, but he's still and it hasn't been that long ago since he was an absolute quality. It was only 2 years ago, where he was just pretty awesome as a second baseman.
Issue, yeah. Perdoma's a guy. At this point, they have Nick Ahmed starting at shortstop, but this Geraldo Perdomo is gonna take over that job pretty soon. He's a good-sized kid, 6'2", 203 at 23 years old. And he should steal that job here before too long as well. The big question mark for Arizona is, can their pitching hold up? Zach Gallen's had injury issues. Merrill Kelly doesn't excite anybody. Mad Bum is not what he used to be. So the pitching's the issue in Arizona, but they could be a fun team.
I like Kelly maybe even more than Gallen.
Really?
So, I mean, he's not going to produce like Gallen, but as far as being a value, I like Kelly as a number 2 guy. They've got 2 guys at the top of the rotation that of course, I got Zach Gallen on my team, so maybe I'm rah-rahing him just a little bit. And but I like him.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what happens with the 2 of them. If I was to get Merrill Kelly on my team, I'd be happy with that, but I didn't. So
San Francisco has good pitching. They're just a boring offensive team. Just really, really boring. But I want to talk about Colorado briefly. Colorado is a team that we anticipate being really, really bad this year. But when you start looking at their team, you go, well, Profar had his best season of his career last year. He comes over to play left field. Chris Bryant was injured all last year. We know that he has the ability to be good. Charlie Blackmon is 36, going on 37.
It seems like he's 46.
Yeah, right. Ryan McMahon is supposed to be really good. And I just have a hard time trusting anything in Colorado. Their pitching staff isn't great. Daniel Bard's supposed to be really, really good, but he's 30. He's going to be 38, and he had a rough outing in the World Baseball Classic too. I look at this team and think they should be better, but I just can't talk myself into Colorado this year.
No, especially when you've got Arizona on the uprise.
Right.
The Giants, as I mentioned, won 107 games 2 years ago. And they know how to play in their home ballpark over there. Their fans
Good point. Yeah.
are get behind them. So they're going to be pretty good at home. And so when you've got that kind of thing going on, and everything should line up for Colorado. They've got a great ballpark.
Yeah.
They've got a great fan base. But the product just hasn't measured up.
Has not measured up. Let's get the win totals in the NL West. Colorado at the bottom of the barrel, 67.5. They only won 68 last year. So they worse than last year or better than last year?
I think that they've done nothing that impresses me. So I'm going under.
I went over with them, but not by a lot. I feel like Chris Bryant's going to be better than he was last year. So
Well, if he's on the field, he's better already.
yeah, so that should give him a win or two more, I would think. That's where I go with that one. Arizona, 75.5. They won 74 last year. I thought, boy, I'd go over that one, wouldn't you?
I would.
Yeah,
I would,
they're
because
80.
you got to figure that offense is going to carry them. And so maybe not a lot over, but yes, over.
San Fran, they're at 80.5. That's basically where they were last year, 81 wins. Where do you sit with that one?
I'd go over. I think they recover some, and maybe 85.
Okay, I'm down on San Francisco this year.
Well,
San
you know,
Diego,
if you're a Dodger guy, you have to be down on San Francisco. That's in your DNA. So if they're under, I'm fully behind that. But I think they'll be a little bit over.
San Diego is only at 93.5. They had 89
That's
wins last year.
insanity to me. They're going to be over that.
I think they're at 100 wins easily this year.
100 wins. If they don't win 100, it's like 98, 99, something like that.
And the Dodgers still on top in Vegas, 96.5.
They're
They
coming
won
under that.
111 last
They're
year.
coming under that, maybe 92, and they will win a wild card spot. But yeah, they're not winning 97 games. I'm sorry.
I think there is a small chance that Arizona could jump to the second team in the division this year because I think the Dodgers are going to be down mainly. So I think if the Diamondbacks get into the mid to upper 80s, they might sneak in over the Dodgers even.
Yeah, the only problem with that is the Dodgers can go out in June or July and get somebody.
But they're not going to because they're waiting for Ohtani.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They could possibly go out and get Ohtani.
Oh, that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. I don't know.
Right? Because like I said, if the Angels are out of contention,
Well, why would you
They got
trade
no-
for him if you
they
could?
got no reason to hold him. None.
I know, but why would you trade for him if you could just sign him in the offseason?
Because if you have him on your team, you could go deep in the playoffs. One guy, you wouldn't think one guy could tip the scales, but we're not talking about one guy. We're talking about two guys in one.
Talking about Shohei and Ohtani.
Shohei and Ohtani. You got Shohei throwing the ball and Ohtani hitting it. So
I like it. I like
because
it.
if you're the Dodgers, you just can't say, well, we're going to wait around for Ohtani. You've got to try and win and get in the playoffs. So they will make a move. Maybe if it's not as splashy as Ohtani, they're going to bring in somebody to at least, because they're not going to just sit there and say, the Padres, here you go. They're not doing that.
No,
So
that's true. That's true. All right, Kev, tell everybody where they can find you and the different places you're on throughout the week.
Well, you know, I'm out there. Chase, that was talking to you just before I came on, him and I, as he mentioned, are doing the show, the football live show that comes on at 10 a.m. And he mentioned that there are a lot of changes coming. He might want to clue me in to what those might be. And so, but we do that. And you and I have got our show, of course, every Sunday night. And get over to the Belly Up Fantasy, get and check out. Because I wrote a story of everybody should have drafted by now.
Yes.
You would think. All
Well,
right.
I have a draft tomorrow night.
Okay, that's fine. But I wrote an article about post-draft pickups. And just before I came on here, I put that out yesterday. And from yesterday to today on Reddit, I've got 22.7 thousand views
Nice.
of that. So if somebody could get out there and kick me up to 25,000, that would be awesome. So I'm just going to put that out there. And so, but anyways, get over to the Belly Up Fantasy because there's all kinds of stories over there on fantasy baseball. We're blowing the lid off of that right now. And over there on the regular side, you just kicked out an article about baseball over there. So baseball rules the roost right now. So get over there. And I want to make sure, because on Thursday, I want to make sure I get this right and I don't mess up their name. And that is the batting order beat.
Yes.
They're doing a show because Thursday, of course, is opening day.
Yep.
They're doing a show. I will be on that show approximately 7 or so Central Time. So you'll want to check that out. So I'm out there. That's all I can say right now.
Belly Up, the batting order beat as well. Very good. He's Kevin Wilson. You can catch him all kinds of places. He's everywhere, all at one time as well. Kevin, hey, thanks for spending a couple divisions with me here tonight. I appreciate
it. It's always a pleasure, man.
All right, we'll see you. We'll see you soon.
See ya.
All right, that's Kevin Wilson again of BellyUpFantasySports.com. Friends, we've made it to the end of the Belly Up Sports Baseball Super Show. Thank you to all of our guests that came on and our sponsors, MahlerBros.com, RighteousFelon.com, and of course, Belly Up Sports for hosting as well. And I told you at the beginning, we're going to tell you exactly what's going to happen this year. Here you go. World Series. It's going to be the San Diego Padres versus the Houston Astros. San Diego's going to win. Take it to the bank. Go right now, right where you are. Run to the bank, take it there, and lock it in. That's what's going to happen. But watch out for those Milwaukee Brewers. Yeah, wherever that is. There you go, over there. But stay tuned to Belly Up Sports all throughout this baseball season. Again, every Sunday night, you can catch me on the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. Kevin joins me on that. We have other guests that come on as well. We give you all the fantasy sports baseball stuff that you need, but we also talk Major League Baseball as well each week there. You can catch me as well. I've got the Sports Stove podcast that comes out every Wednesday night, the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show every Sunday, and then a Sports Stove local hour covering Eastern Kentucky University sports that we drop every Friday morning. You can find it all at the Sports Stove podcast or through bellyup.com, bellyupsports.com. You can find us through the podcast page there as well. You need some beef jerky, go to righteousfelon.com. You need some fresh duds to wear on the golf course, you go to MahlerBros.com. You need sports news, sports opinion, sports satire, you go to bellyupsports.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Belly Up Sports Baseball Super Show. May you have a wonderful night and a great opening day this week. It's time for baseball.